Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my Phantom Thoughts. Folks, we are almost to August, which means we are almost to RPGaDay 2026. And if you're not certain what that is still, if this is the first time you're listening to my podcast or any podcast that's mentioned RPGaDay 2026, is simply a celebration of role-playing and the role-playing hobby. And every year at the beginning of July, the blogs autocratic.com, that's with a K for the last letter, or the Casting Shadows blog, put out a list of prompts just to help stir the imagination, things you can talk about to celebrate the RPG hobby. They put out one for every day. They put out a whole calendar worth. They do it a month in advance, so you have a chance to, to ponder on it and get an idea if you want to prepare yourself more, if you want to have a plan, if you want to link things. There's lots of different ways you can do it. People do it just on social media posts, various social media sites. People do it like I've done the last few years on their podcast. If they have a podcast, people will do it with YouTube videos. But it's just a celebration of the hobby. It's not anything that has to be heavy. It's not anything that has to be burdensome. It's just, if you enjoy RPGs, say why. Use the prompts. Don't use the prompts. Do it every day. Do it once a week. Do it a couple of times during the month. Do it once during the month. But put something out there to say, this is why I enjoy RPGs, or to give a shout out to the creators that you enjoy, the people who create the RPG content that you enjoy on a regular basis. Do I have any idea what I'm about to do this year? No, I don't. This is, at this point, the last at least couple of years, I've had a good idea of what I'm doing and have, in many cases, already been started preparing for it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I'm going to do something because I've made it part of what I do, and to talk about this hobby that I've gotten back into and enjoy so much. Enjoy hearing other people talk about and seeing what other people are doing and seeing the products that other people are putting out. It's just very exciting. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of different ways to approach gaming out there. So this was supposed to be a short section, but yes, RPGaDay 2026. Check out the links in the show notes if you're just not sure about what's going on with it, or if you want to see the prompts, if you haven't seen the prompts yet. But check it out and celebrate RPGs this August. All right, let's talk about some gaming bundles. I got 3 as of right now. As always, the bundle folks, usually Fanatical, Humble Bundle, and Bundle of Holding, sometimes put out something after I've done my initial recording, but before I put out the final podcast, so it's always, subject to addition. But right now, I've just got 3, 2 from Bundle of Holding, 1 from Fanatical. The Bundle of Holding, I've got Everspark and More. This is a 1-tier bundle, $12.95 for 5 products. This bundle is 5 indie RPGs from Cesar Capital, I'm wanting to say. Cesar Capital. Everspark, the widely praised zero-prep fantasy game for 1 to 4 players. Load the simulation, play solo or with 1 to 4 players. Intense, probing training simulations aboard a massive starship. Nexalis, Sail the Nectar, a cosmic magical ocean in bright fantasy stories of exploration. And Against the Wind, a solo or co-op sandbox game blending traditional and narrative procedures about your nomadic journey across a relentlessly harsh frozen landscape. And finally, Insurgent, a vivid, high-action game of rebellion against tyranny where you take a stand for freedom and look good doing it. And then the other Bundle of Holding offering is a 2-tier version, Hackmaster, the Players Collection for $12.95, and the Game Master Collection, if you do the level up price, currently $28.78. The Players Collection is the Hackmaster Player's Handbook, 2 volumes of Priest Spells, Zealot's Guide, Book 1 and 2, and the adventures in the Realm of the Elm King and its sequel, Legacy of the Elm King. And as a convenience, also gathered in this bundle is many free Hackmaster downloads from the company website. And then the Game Master Collection gives you the Hackmaster Game Master's Guide, the Hacklopedia of Beasts Monster Manual, and the campaign setting Frandor's Keep. And Hackmaster was it was originally just the game that was being played in a gaming comic called Knights of the Dinner Table, and it's evolved into a full-fledged fantasy RPG. So, and there's a lot of people that play it, that enjoy it. This is a revival promoting Kinzer's new Kickstarter campaign for the Hackmaster 25th Anniversary Edition that tells you how long the game's been around. And so, it's a way to get in at a fairly cheap price. I mean, even that $28.78 is pretty cheap because, these are full-fledged game, I say books, they're PDFs, but, if you buy them from the company, you're going to pay a lot more than that $28.78 for this bundle. And then moving on to Fanatical, we had the Classic Saga RPG bundle featuring Twilight 2000 and 2300 AD. There are 4 tiers, 5 products for $2.99, 15 products for $8.99, 30 products for $14.99, and 72 products for $22.99. So the 5 product version is the Twilight 2000 First Edition core set, the 2300 AD First Edition core set, the Free City of Krakow for Twilight 2000. That's a module. And then Ranger, which looks to be a module for 2300 AD. And then finally, the Player's Guide to Twilight 2000 version 1.0. Everything you wanted to know about the Twilight 2000 role-playing game system, but didn't know how to ask, including a short history of development, a comprehensive list of all GDW published modules for the system, and rating of the general quality of each module. So that's a pretty short and sweet bundles segment. But again, they could add 3 more before I get this thing published, so who knows. All right, looking at blogs. Got a lot of blogs going through. Swords and Stitchery. This is one I think I mention it every time I mention blogs on here. I really like what Swords and Stitchery does, whether it's providing these D100 tables that they establish all the time, or talking about how to take things from different game systems and combine them in certain ways. And this is no different. The posts I've posted of interest herein, one from July 23rd, integrating Adventure Conquer King System 2 with the legendary chaotic and maximum gonzo DNA of Dave Hargrave's Arduin Grimoires. I've mentioned this several times. There have been several posts about this, so this is a continuation of that. Converting Arduin's Welcome to Skull Tower 1978 to Acts 2, and that's exactly what it talks about. It's taking the Arduin mechanics and translating them into the Adventure Conquer King system mechanics. And it talks about different things like how to convert armor class, attack rolls, saving throws, critical hits and fumbles, gonzo and multiversal loot, converting signature classes, monster and encounter conversion. Just, it's very system oriented, and I always find these posts interesting. Even though I've never played either of those 2 systems, I always still find it interesting. The next post is likewise. This is from July 18th. Building the Red Planet Empire, mixing warriors of the Red Planet with the domain level architecture of Adventure Conquer King System 2 RPG, the Archeon Slave Market for Warriors of the Red Planet, and Acts 2. And again, this is another one in a series of posts taking the Warriors of the Red Planet RPG and the Acts 2 RPG and, melding them together essentially. This is talking about converting what is essentially a trading hub with different kind of offerings. Talks about how adopting the different mechanics for purchasing things. Fair warning, it does mention some of the products mentioned here in this, this high-tech market of sorts. It does include some slave factions, so just fair warning on that. Then there's a D100 table of Archeon market encounters. And again, it's their usual, what do you roll, what the encounter is, what type of encounter is it combat, hazard, an event, intrigue, and then a description and the mechanical impact of that hazard, of that encounter. And then finally, I consider this the most unusual one. It's from July 21st. It's the Zutarian Domination Faction for Stars Without Number RPG and its expanding conquest. So it's adapting the Zutarian RPG, the Zutarians for Stars Without Number. And this is just taking the Zutarian Empire, the Zutarian Dominion, commonly known as the Zutarians, and using the faction rules for the Stars Without Number to, outfit them to say what they are, what kind of assets they have. Again, it's very mechanically oriented in that way. It also includes PC intersections and adventure hooks, faction goal and agenda, the current assets, the faction tags, all that stuff. But the reason why I say this is the most kind of interesting is I had never heard of this, of Zutarians. I was wondering what kind of fandom, what kind of RPG, because it didn't mention another RPG other than Stars Without Number. What kind of world it comes from, what kind of, whether it's a book series or television show or movie or what have you. And I went digging, and the only thing I could find that mentioned Zutarians was from a comic book called, the title Fantastic Comics, from July 1941. Now, I'm not certain if this is exactly what they were going at, or if that group, or just a group with that name, has been adapted from something else. But the only illustration of this entry does appear to be a panel from a comic book. So it kind of sent me down an internet rabbit hole that made me wonder, what is this? Because it seems like that's just a story in a comic book from the 1940s. And how on earth did that end up in a blog post? And I haven't put any kind of a comment on. I should put a comment on the blog post and just ask what led them to this, because I just find that very interesting. Interesting enough to spend some time, pondering through the internet, trying to find answers. All right, moving on to the next post. This is from the Fantastic War Games WMAS blogspot. Boldvay's Fantastic War Games campaigns. Living gaming campaigns from Western Massachusetts. This particular entry is from July 18th, and it's the Napindixia Campaign 3.0, Session 136. And normally I don't recommend session reports. There are a lot of blogs that I read for the session reports. I like to see how other people are doing things, how it fits in with just general how people game. I guess that's how it is. This one in particular is focused around a mass battle, essentially, that they ran. And, there's a lot to the post. There's a big thing of text on here. I don't know that I recommended it as the most well-formatted text. And if you haven't been reading the series, and even if you have, because I have for a while, you might not follow along with exactly what's going on. But there's a couple of maps, and there's a big chart of all the factions and faction people and units that were involved. And I just found it very intriguing because I like the whole intersection of mass battles within an RPG context that have been built up through, the play in the campaign has led to this. And then there are going to be, a battle is usually a dramatic thing, and there are dramatic things that result from it. And sometimes it can throw an entire plan, an entire group, entire campaign into chaos because of the results. And I think this is one of those. So that's why I'm recommending that. But fair warning, if you've never ever looked at this blog, be prepared to probably go back through multiple entries to try to figure out exactly what's going on. All right, the next blog is really, I'm recommending the blog as much as the particular post. This is the Doomslaker's blog. This is from James West, who is the publisher most recently of the Gozer RPG. And this is a series of, I'm talking about 4 different entries that all occurred in July, from July 11, one of them is from June actually. But the last 3 were in July 11th, 18th, and 19th, and the first one is in June 20th. The last 2, the 18th and 19th, are the Dead Wizards design log, blog post 1 and 2 for those. This is a sword sorcery RPG set in a sandy land, a bit of sand and sorcery, if you will. That's straight from the blog. This is a new RPG that James is developing, and these 2 posts are different parts of character creation, and one of them, they're both about character creation, and then in one of the posts, I think it's the first one. Well, no, the other 2 are the setting surveys, and this is just James looking at other RPGs and seeing how they handle setting within the RPG. And the second of the posts links to the design log, talking about how he's doing this because he's trying to figure that out for this new game as well. The first setting survey post, which, like I said, it was back in June, goes over RPGs Fever Swamp, Yoon Soon, an anomalous subsurface environment. And then the second one looks at the Black Sword Hack and Heavy Metal Thunder Mouse. I really wanted to get that right. Heavy Metal Thunder Mouse. So, really what all these posts have in common is a game designer designing and gathering information and going back through RPGs that they own to help them with their own design process. So that's an interesting process, I think. And then I have an entry from the Sorcerer's Skull blog, or the Sorcerer's Skull blogspot.com blog. This one is from July 17th. It's called Fantasy Superheroes. And it starts off with a common criticism of later editions of D&D from fans of older editions is that they produce fantasy superheroes. Personally, my personal opinion, OD&D characters are superheroes, or at least demigods, if you don't consider them actual superheroes, because the recommended battle resolution system is the chainmail war game for OD&D, and in that, a hero, essentially a 4th level fighter, could take on and kill units and in chainmail there it's usually a figure represents 20 individual soldiers, and depending on how what you called the how the fighter was outfitted, if they were outfitted like heavy cavalry, a knight on horseback, they could conceivably kill 4 of those figures. They would certainly try to, and they would probably kill at least one. So you've got one individual killing at least 20 soldiers in one go. If that's not superhero level stuff, I don't know what is. But anyway, that's a digression From the Sorcerer's Skull talks about fantasy superheroes from the idea of, what would it mean to be a fantasy superhero? And he specifically calls out 2 comic books, which I've never heard of, but sound interesting, having dug into them a little bit. Battle Chasers or Dreadstar, and the animated series He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. In particular, talking about epic fantasy stories full of superpowered characters. And what would it mean to what would that look like? What would that kind of RPG look like if they were in fact fantasy superheroes? And so he goes into discussion about that. The next blog entry is from Save versus Dragon, and this is really recommending a series of blogs because this author is looking at putting together a BX DMG, so a Dungeon Master's Guide for the BX box set of rules, and so far has written several entries that would be included in that. One is higher elevations, including acclamation, outlines for effects of the environment and natural hazards. One of them is a specific hazard, lightning storms, and then also an entry on camping. Also, and a entry on light and vision, how light and vision affects, when you're exploring. There's a article on house rule for sharing potions between characters, simplifying magic resistance, silvered weapons. I mean, it's an extensive list already, and some of them link posts from earlier than when the blog author was talking about organizing a BX DMG. But obviously this blog author thinks that these are going to be factored into that. So they're pulling back posts from their own history. Most of them are from this year. I think there's one at the very end that's not, but most of them are from this year. And the most recent one is July 19th. So it's an interesting series, and I've posted the link I've posted in for that in the show notes is to essentially the search because he's using keywords, and the keyword is the BX DMG. And so that's what the link is to. So that'll bring up all those posts. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is from the Delving Wolf blog. And this particular one is called Let's Create a Dungeon with Cairn 2E. So using the Cairn procedures to begin creating a dungeon. I know it's to begin with because it's labeled as part 1. And that was published on July 19th. But then he also has within the link, within the blog entry, links to how they created a realm and a faction and a forest for a future campaign that they're going to be undertaking. So again, this is kind of recommending a series of blogs, but this is through the specific blog entry because all the other links are in that blog entry. So Let's Create a Dungeon with Cairn 2E Part 1 on July 19th from Delving Wolf. And so that is it for blogs for this time. And now, more from my solo AD&D RPG campaign, Tales of the Dragon Slayers. The following takes place in the evening after Sven was raised. That night, the party met at the Maiden's Kiss in Kingston. Gus noted some discomfort from Edgar. "Why so ill at ease, my friend?" "This place is a little more," Edgar waved his hand vaguely in a circle, "sophisticated than I'm used to." "You and the men of Bargain's battalion haven't been living it up like this in Walshire?" Gus teased. "The only place like this there caters to merchants and nobility, and prices accordingly," Edgar smiled ruefully. "Besides, the mercenaries are just more comfortable at a more down-to-dirt establishment." "Anyone in particular?" Katya inquired. "The ogre's gizzard." Cudgel snorted and choked on his ale. Gus clapped him on his back. Easy, big fella. No point nearly killing yourself on a rare night out. Katya chuckled. You must be a real teacher's pet for Nantor to let you out of his sight while in training. I don't recall him doing that for me. Speaking of the nearly dying, Edgar started, as 3 quizzical looks were shot his way. How did Sven's ceremony go? Well, Katya responded, but obviously he'll be laid up for a while. We all know all too much about that lately, Gus added. All the more reason for Cudgel to be here, Edgar put in, and for me to seek my own training. Any luck on that front? Cudgel asked. Yes, Edgar responded. I found a druid willing to take me to his own master. That was quick. Seems like we just got here, though it's been a couple of days, Katya chimed in. He's well incentivized, Edgar answered. He and his party apparently were robbed by a group of orcs. He's looking to level up his game, so to speak, and needs specie to fund their own trip for training. Gus raised his eyebrows. A group of orcs? Yes, with hill giants and 2 human warriors. Apparently the orc leader had a magical ring. He kept bragging about how powerful it was. An orc with a magic ring? Gus realized he was a little louder than he intended to. He silently thanked Safiat they were in a private room. Colonel Edhart was telling me about an orc tribe that established a lair to the northeast. Their chieftain is supposed to have some sort of enchanted ring. What made him bring that up? Did he want help to deal with them as well? Katya asked. Not specifically, Gus responded. They aren't on the King's Road yet, and he knows we're here reconstituting our forces. He was telling me about it because I noticed that location was marked on a map I saw in his office, because it's marked in the same area as the Dragon Cave. After a pause, Katya said, Won't Edgar and the dwarves and gnomes have to pass that area? Gus replied with a curt, Yes. For a time, the group nursed their drinks. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Night Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voicemail on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.